It's a big, noisy universe of stocks out there. Welcome to Goodbye or Goodbye. Our goal to help cut through that noise to navigate the best moves for your portfolio. Weight loss drugs have taken Wall Street by storm. An insatiable demand for GLP-1s has fueled big profits for pharmaceutical giants and sparked concerns among food companies over changing consumer appetite. So what's the best way to play it now? I'm here with Matt Higgins, RSC Ventures co-founder and CEO. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get straight to your buy stock, and it's one that has already been a monster. We're talking about Eli Lilly here. Of course, we have seen it rocket over the last year. So let's get to your thesis as to why it's still a buy. First of all, you're looking at the continued growth potential for GLP-1s, in part based on some big estimates that we've been getting.
Yeah, look, for some people, the reason I choose Lilly, some people might think the train has left the station. I don't even think the train has begun to get underway. 40% of America labors under obesity. It's a huge problem. This has a potential and will be the largest drug in the history of the United States, of the world. $100 billion by 2030 is the estimates. I think it actually could be bigger because it's not factoring in what happens when insurance providers start to cover it. I think it's going to become an issue of equity. You can't have obesity over-indexed in among poorer population, and then it's not covered. So I think this actually underestimates the power of Eli Lilly.
Interesting, especially a good point on the coverage, because I know that's been a concern for investors. Second point here is what Eli Lilly specifically has to offer within this category, because they're out with a couple of drugs, but more to come.
Well, Eli Lilly's not resting on its laurels, right? So the holy grail now that everyone is chasing, and some people just hate needles.
Yes.
And so can you do it in a pill form? And here's a secondary problem. There's been some studies that show that there is a loss of muscle mass when you take GLP-1 drugs. And so it's an ongoing issue. So if you can combine a pill form with something that attacks muscle retention, that's going to open up a whole nother market. So Eli Lilly's kind of like an ETF, because not only do you get the pipeline of obesity drugs, they also have some exciting Alzheimer drugs on the horizon. So you don't need to win just in this category.
And then one more point in this category is the rate of obesity that we see in the US specifically.
Yeah, I mean, this drug is completely on trend. It's like the whole world has awoken to longevity. Aging is no longer seen as inevitable. If you look at the early data from Eli Lilly, not only is it addressing obesity, it's addressing comorbid conditions in ways they don't even completely understand. Cardiovascular improvement in ways they aren't only attributed to weight loss. So in a lot of ways, it is a wonder drug. So Americans are getting more and more focused on how do we tackle obesity. Obesity is something that can be reversed, and that's not going to change.
At the same time, we always like to talk about risks that are associated with this. And I have to say, when you call it a wonder drug, sometimes if something sounds too good to be true, maybe it is. So you have to look at what are the potential risks here with some of these drugs.
Of course, and I think that's why some people may have been slow to embrace it. One, they didn't take the drug, so they haven't seen the impact. Those who have are evangelical about it, mostly. Some of the risks are that we've seen it with fen-phen. There's been wonder drugs before, and it turned out to be unsafe. This has been studied vastly. There are some early reports, though, about issues with bowel blockage and some other, secondary concerns. So, of course, you always wake up one day to an FDA alert, and everything goes to hell. But so far, it doesn't seem that way.
Okay, so Eli Lilly, that's your goodbye. Let's talk about your goodbye, the one you don't like related to this theme, and that is PepsiCo. And this is a very different stock chart over the past year. So let's get first here to what we've seen from GLP-1 users, which is sort of interesting here. Again, looking at some data from JP Morgan.
Yeah, so I do a lot in the consumer space. I have a lot of companies that focus on sweets, and I am seeing it everywhere. There's been a dramatic shift in behavior. If I was to go into ChatGPT and say, design me a holding company that is completely off trend, the answer would be Pepsi. Frito-Lay is about 50% of its revenue, Cheetos and Doritos and all that. So the bottom line is there's a huge shift in consumer preferences that's not obvious, but as GLP-1 drugs spread throughout the population, this is going to become a significant impact on Pepsi's bottom line.
Yeah, and I mean, this was an interesting survey in particular by people who were using the GLP-1s and just what, the projections for what they were not going to be buying.
Look at these numbers. If you know anybody who's on a GLP-1 drug, they tell you the last thing they want is chips. They want protein. They want health food.
It's just what they're craving to eat, which is interesting here. In the case of Pepsi, too, they do have they've made some changes in the portfolio, right? Smaller sizes, for example, of their packaging. But you say they've been slower to pivot to help.
Yeah, it's interesting. I teach at Harvard Business School direct to consumer, and this year we brought in a beverage called Olipop, right? There's another one called Poppy, right? So they're all about probiotics and about gut health. And what you could tell from looking around the classroom, average age probably 27, they're totally focused on drinking things that are good for them. Pepsi has created their own, has not worked. So they have been slow to pivot. All you have to do is look at the tape. The GLP-1, Eli Lilly announced Mounjaro on May 22nd, 2022. May 13th, rather, the stock price has gone from $292 to $740. Pepsi that same day has gone from $620 to $617. It's flat.
Right, yeah. So it's, as you say, the tape tells the tale. And then, speaking of the tape telling the tale, Pepsi recently came out with its numbers, and the market was disappointed.
Yeah, I think it's not a coincidence that the same day that Mounjaro is launched with Eli Lilly, and then you look at Pepsi, the stock is entirely flat to do, which is hard to do. The S&P has gone up 26% in the same time. So I think the canaries in the gold mine was the fact that there's a revenue decline. Wasn't entirely attributed to GLP-1 drugs. Right. I think it's the story below the story. But Pepsi is going to have to make a hard pivot, or else, in my view, it's going to be in trouble.
All right, well, so that, I guess, is the upside risk to your bear case on Pepsi, that they make that pivot and start to build up their healthier brand portfolio.
So here's the upside case. I think like a lot of big, massive brands like Pepsi, first they try to invent it in-house because everybody wants to be creative. And the reality, it's really hard to create the next TikTok brand when you're a stodgy corporation and don't want to take risks. And what do? They realize we got to go on a shopping spree. So I would not be surprised to see Pepsi do a few things. Buy protein-based chips, start scooping those up, protein-based drinks, probiotic. They start rebranding themselves as a better-for-you holding company because they are just completely off-trend, and the only thing they could do is shop their way out of it.
Interesting stuff. All right, and for disclosure for our viewers, you are long, personally, Eli Lilly, and you're
I am
short.
very short. I'm very goodbye on Pepsi.
Okay, so let's summarize then what you're telling people here. Basically, you say buy Eli Lilly based on the growth potential of their GLP-1 franchise, including the pipeline of new medications and the state of obesity in America. On the other side, you say stay away from Pepsi for its reliance on income from snack foods, slow pivot to healthier options, and recent revenue declines.
There you have it.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate you appearing on Goodbye or Goodbye. Thank you for watching, and we'll be bringing you new episodes 3 times a week at 3:30 p.m. Eastern.